Welcome to the Couch Scouts podcast. We provide league-winning analysis, advice, and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Scout, draft, win. Here's your host, Matt Cooper.
Welcome to the Couch Scouts podcast, a little special NFL draft edition. I am your host, Matt Cooper. With me, as always, are my co-host, Matt Rupert.
How you doing tonight, my man?
And Matt Jackson.
What's going on, guys?
So, NFL draft round one just happened. It is 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But we want to get you guys our instant reactions here. So this will be up the Friday morning after day one of the NFL draft. And we were going to give you guys just some immediate quick hit reactions to the fantasy relevant players that were, and even some that maybe were not drafted tonight. So let's get into it. We had a pretty chalk start with Cam Ward at the 1-1. Going to the Tennessee Titans. And I'll just read off the players that went in the first round. How about that? And then we can start reacting. So at the second overall pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars traded up to take Travis Hunter. And they announced him as wide receiver / defensive back. So we'll get into all that in a minute and try to sort that out. At the sixth overall pick, the Raiders took Ashton Genty, running back out of Boise State. At the eighth overall pick, the Panthers took Teroa McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona. At the 10th overall pick, the Chicago Bears took Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan. At the 14th overall pick, the Colts took the other tight end, Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State. At pick 19, Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver, Ohio State, was drafted to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that's an interesting one. We're definitely going to need to talk about that. At pick 22, oh man, this one is sweet. The Los Angeles Chargers take Omarion Hampton, running back, UNC. At pick 23, the Green Bay Packers took Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. At pick 25, the Giants traded up into the first round to take Jackson Dart, quarterback, Ole Miss. And that's it. That's your first round offensive skill position players that were taken. And some notable names that were not taken, but we thought might be, were Shedeur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado, Travion Henderson, running back out of Ohio State, and Luther Burden, wide receiver out of Missouri. So those were three players that at least we thought had a chance to go round one and didn't. So with all that laid out there, I'll throw out a simple question to get us started, guys. What most surprised you in the first round of the NFL draft?
To me, it was the Bucks taking Egbuka when they have Evans already. They have Godwin. They have McMillan. Definitely not a need for them. I think he's a great player. It's just going to be such a crowded room for him to really have any kind of fantasy impact unless, there's an injury there. Chris Godwin takes a while to get back. That one was definitely surprising, even though I like it for my Baker shares.
Yeah, that was surprising for me too. And I think we should probably take a minute and just talk about that from a dynasty perspective because, one, Egbuka is a guy that we had pretty high ranked in our rookie guide. And, obviously a prospect we like a lot. First round draft capital is great, but landing spot, you go there with Evans, Godwin, and you mentioned McMillan as well. So that's something to talk about. How does it affect our view of Egbuka? How does it affect our view of the other two guys, Evans and Godwin? And is McMillan basically just dead? I'll throw it to you, Jackson. How are you shaking this out from a dynasty perspective?
Yeah, so I'll start with how it affects my view of Egbuka, and it's not much, honestly. I think it's more than possible that Godwin may not be up to quite the speed or health that Tampa Bay thought he was going to be. So Ibuka could come in and potentially even slide into that wide receiver 2 option until Godwin is back to full health. You look at both of these guys, right? They're both getting up there in age. It's quite possible that even one, if not two, both of those guys are off the roster by next year. So when you look at immediate fantasy impact, yeah, this is going to have an impact on year one. I kind of think of Jackson Smith and Jigba with Seattle year one. It can kind of have some of that impact, but I'm not worried about it from a fantasy perspective. Maybe even past his first year. I do think that Jalen McMillian is kind of shot in the water a little bit.
Yep.
I don't love that for him. For all the people that were holding on to McMillan shares, this isn't great for that. But I'm still not. I'm not worried long-term perspective when it comes to Ibuka's value.
Yeah, so I'll piggyback on that, and I agree with you about Ibuka. I think the JSN thing that you threw out there is a great call out. Still very much in on him, and I think maybe now will be a value because if people overreact to the landing spot and you can get him late first instead of mid first, I love that. McMillan, we had a conversation in our Couch Scouts Discord not that long ago because somebody threw out a trade and they said, I got offered the 208 for Jalen McMillan. Should I take it? And we had some people that were like, no way. You got to shoot for a higher second than that. And a couple of us said, take it. Yeah. Like next year, you won't even be able to get a third for him. And that was before they drafted Ibuka. So like I was one of those people. I said take the 208 because I felt like McMillan, day 3 wide receiver, if I'm not mistaken, last year. Maybe he was third round. I really can't remember. But a prospect we didn't love. We had him graded as a backup with starter upside. He really, produced when those guys were hurt. And even then it was really touchdown dependent. They re-signed Godwin long-term, which to me showed me that they didn't believe that McMillan was a number 2 that they felt confident in. And, anyway, so obviously if you got the 208 for McMillan a couple weeks ago, you're feeling pretty great about that right now because the team obviously didn't even believe in him to be their number 3 guy. So they like McMillan little enough to want to spend a first-round pick to go get an upgrade there. So McMillan's kind of dead in the water. My view for Evans is not that changed because Ibuka's not an X receiver anyway, and so I think Mike Evans is just going to go do what he's always done. Cade Otton kind of dead in the water. I was never really that excited about him anyway, but yeah, I think the targets are going to be pretty much spread between Evans, Godwin, and Ibuka. I think it affects Godwin from a fantasy perspective a lot more than it affects Evans.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So in fact, I have an offer out that I sent before the draft to send a second-round pick in 2026 for Mike Evans, and I have not withdrawn that offer. So I would still send a second-round pick. Now, I mean, who knows if that'll get done, but I'm not going, oh man, I'm panicking about Evans now. I'm going to go withdraw that offer. So anyway, yeah, that was a surprising pick. You're right, Rupert. Jackson, what was most surprising to you?
I would say most surprising wasn't honestly a pick. It was the fact that Shedeur Sanders fell out of the first round. Now, if you've been listening to Couch Scouts for any length of time, you know that we were not Shedeur Sanders fans. You know that we didn't think that he deserved to be a first-round quarterback taken in this draft. However, with that being said, I know a lot of teams, or it felt like a lot of teams thought he did deserve to be a first-round quarterback. I'm a little disappointed, guys, that there won't be that value slide of other players down the board because Shedeur wasn't taken in the first round. I was completely expecting him to be like a top 15, and if anything, slide back to the Giants at pick, 22 or 23? And that was going to push talent down the board for us later in drafts, and that just didn't end up happening. So that was a little shocking to me. I thought some team would take a chance on him, but it does feel like that Deion Sanders effect was more hype than it actually was coming to fruition a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm surprised. Maybe a little bit, obviously, because all the mock drafts had him going high. But we've been hearing rumors for a little while now that he was slipping, that teams weren't as into him. I feel like he's always been one of those like media darlings that the media was more into him than the NFL actually was. And obviously we watched and didn't think he was anywhere close to a first round talent. So, kudos to an NFL team for not
Just taking their guns,
taking that trap. But yeah, I mean, you saw him mocked. I mean, to your point though, you would see him in mock drafts from like anywhere all the way up to like pick 9 to the Saints pretty frequently. So it's a little surprising, but it kind of reminds me of like the Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett year, where it was just a weak quarterback class and everybody was like mocking 3 or 4 of those guys to go in the first round. And in the end, it just ended up being Pickett and he wasn't even good. So I don't know that we're going to see Shador fall all the way to round 3 like what we saw with Malik Willis, but it reminds me a little bit of that class. Where it's just a weaker quarterback class, and NFL teams were smart enough for the most part not to take the bait, and kudos to them. So, but it is a little disappointing that you're not going to see people taking Shador at like the 1-9 in your rookie draft and pushing good players down the board to you. So, let's talk about the tight ends for a minute. All right. So we expected Loveland and Warren to both go the first round, and they both did. I think most mock drafts had Warren going first, and so that got flipped a little bit. They both go to teams where they're very clearly the starting tight end, which isn't surprising. I mean, I think if a team's going to spend a first-round pick on you, you're probably the starter. So the Bears had a huge need because I've never been a Cole Kmet believer. And the Colts definitely had a huge need because they don't have anybody on their roster that's even halfway decent. Which of these spots do y'all like more for fantasy? I'll throw it to you, Rupert.
I want to go with Loveland with the Bears just because they have a better quarterback and system in my mind. With Warren going to the Colts, with all the wide receiver talent, like they're just not a high volume passing attack to where I think they can really feature him. Granted, I think the way that Warren plays with a lot of the short stuff, like giving Anthony Richardson a security blanket would be nice for his game, so he's not just chucking the ball down the field all the time. But if I want to pick one, I want to go with the better quarterback and the the coaching staff that has had good production out of the tight end with Sam Laporta. Even though last year we saw his production diminish with other weapons really stepping up, which is probably what we're going to see with the Bears. So almost slightly disappointing that he's not going to be like the number 1 or number 2 on his team.
I would kind of speak to that a little bit. I'm a little disappointed in both slots, to be honest with you. You're playing this kind of back and forth juxtaposition a little bit, right? Like, do you want the tight end with the better quarterback, but he's the third best option on his team behind DJ Moore and behind Rome Odunze? Or do you want the guy who's clearly probably a top 2 option, maybe even the option on his team, but Anthony Richardson is not a great quarterback, right? So it's weird. You said it perfectly in our Discord hangout tonight, Cooper, that if you're a tight end, and if you're a tight end to the skill level that Colston Loveland is, you want him to at least be a top 2 option on his team. And he's not going to be that for the Chicago Bears. But yeah, I would tend to agree with Rupert. Like, give me the better quarterback in that situation. Our film grades were so close on these guys anyway that it's not like a talent wins out type of situation. So I'm going to take the quarterback who can distribute the ball a little better than Anthony Richardson can. But at the same time, I'm not a huge fan of either one of these landing spots. I think it pushes them both down the board a little bit. They'll both still be first-round picks in rookie drafts, but I think they'll fall a little further than they were initially.
Yeah, I think for me, I've actually been going back and forth on this in my head all night because, like you said, the Chicago offense is so crowded in terms of targets. With you've got Rome Odunze and DJ Moore, who I think clearly will slot in ahead of Loveland in the pecking order. even though Loveland's a really good player, those guys are they're fantastic. And, we'll see what happens at running back. Right now, you don't have anybody at running back that's really a threat, but they could take somebody on day 2 to slide in as their starter. I think a lot of people expect them to do that. So there's a lot of moving pieces in that offense. And then on the flip side with the Colts, I mean, I like Pittman. I think Pittman's a good player. I like Downs a lot, and we liked Adonai Mitchell quite a bit last year too. Now, I think Tyler Warren definitely would slot in ahead of Adonai Mitchell in the pecking order. He does have a clear path to be a top 2 target on his team, but it's not like crystal clear, you know. And then of course the passing volume, the quarterback is murky, all that kind of stuff. So. Yeah, I think I'm with you guys. I lean Loveland, and really the difference maker for me is Ben Johnson, because even last year, Sam Laporta took a step back from being tight end 1 overall, but he was still a very startable, very usable fantasy tight end that had a lot of good weeks from a fantasy perspective, even with Gibbs and Amon-Ra and Jamison Williams. Like, Ben Johnson understands how to use a receiving tight end in a fantasy-friendly way. He understands how to run an offense that hums at a high enough level that lots of people can be fantasy relevant in that offense. And then, tied to Caleb Williams long-term is great too. So overall, I'm with you guys. I'm going to have Colston Loveland ahead of Tyler Warren because they were very close for me in film grade anyway. Loveland goes a little higher in the draft to a little bit better landing spot. I think that's enough to bump Loveland up higher for me. And similar to what I said about Ibuka, you could see them fall a little bit more to the late first round or even early second round because people don't love the landing spot. And it could present some value there because they're still really elite tight end prospects.
I am sad now that it seems like the days of getting Loveland in the early second is probably over now.
Yeah, but maybe you get Warren in the early second now. I don't know. That is a pretty gross landing spot for all the reasons that we just mentioned. So let's talk about Travis Hunter. We love to talk about Travis Hunter on this show. We have been touting him for a while as the clear-cut wide receiver 1 in this class, as an elite level wide receiver prospect. And now that the speculation constantly has been like, how is he going to be used? I don't know. There's so much risk. And we've been blowing the horn. It's like he's too talented a wide receiver not to play wide receiver. He's going to be fine. We've got him really high. I had him at the 103 pre-draft just because of the uncertainty, that tiny little bit of uncertainty. And I had Hampton at the 2 because I just was expecting him to be a first-round running back to a good spot, and that's such a juicy, which that happened, and he right? Was. So that happened. So now I'm going to ask you guys, I mean, I guess context for those that maybe haven't looked into it yet. The report that I read, I haven't gone back and watched the press conference, but I think in the press conference, the Jags were asked, how do you expect to use Travis Hunter after trading up for him? And they said that he's primarily going to play on offense to start, which is music to my ears because, I mean, I was going to be all in on him even on the Browns with a terrible quarterback situation as long as I knew he was playing offense. Now I have been told he's going to be playing offense, and he's in Jacksonville with a much better offense, a much better quarterback, an offensive-minded coach. Like, I'm thrilled about this. So I think this is wheels up for Travis Hunter. And I'm asking you guys, Travis Hunter or Amari and Hampton at 102 or somebody else, who you taking? Jackson?
I'm taking Travis Hunter at 102. For me, yes, Amari and Hampton got a juicy landing spot. We love the Chargers landing spot for him. We know that Harbaugh likes to run the ball, but the film grade on Travis Hunter is so much higher than any other player that we have in this class. He goes to arguably a better spot in Jacksonville, as you mentioned, than he did Cleveland. And he goes to an offensive-minded head coach who's come out and said that he's going to primarily play offense. At least that's what they're telling us, right? We don't know, but that's what they're telling us. He's primarily going to play offense to start the season. I look at what Jacksonville gave up to trade up to this spot, right? They gave up their number 5 overall pick. They gave up a second-round pick, a fourth-round pick this year, and then a first-round pick next year. In my eyes, guys, you don't give up that kind of package unless you have significant plans to use this guy as a weapon. The way I see it, and I've kind of been chewing on this point and thinking about it, like you don't pay that price for primarily a wide receiver, and you don't pay that price primarily for a defensive back, but you do pay it to somebody that you plan to use all over the field. So I could see. I mean, I'm not going to say he's not going to play defensive back. I see a path that he plays cornerback. But with the team already being adamant that he's going to play offense, and we know what kind of offensive player he is, and like how well he's going to succeed in that spot, he's clearing away the 102 for me. Where I think this conversation gets really interesting is it's going to get juicy. That people are going to say, he might play cornerback. If there's any sort of fog or ambiguity in this, and we know there's going to be, like he's going to slip a little bit. People are going to get scared, and you already see it happening.
You already see
it happening.
He could.
I mean, he could be just a steal in rookie drafts this year.
He could be. Rupert, I'm assuming 102 for you as well.
Easy. Thrilled with the Jacksonville spot compared to the Browns.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And to your point, Jackson, he is the highest drafted cornerback in NFL history if he was purely a cornerback. And he's the first wide receiver to go top 2 since 2007 if he was purely a wide receiver. So probably their plan is to use him at both if they're going to trade up and take him that high. You just don't see somebody go that high if they're just playing the one position.
I think exactly what we called back in January is going to come true. He's going to play mostly wide receiver and then situational quarterback.
I think what's really interesting is you've got him opposite Brian Thomas Jr. on the other side. Like, if Trevor Lawrence doesn't take that step forward this year, like you've got some real problems.
So who's the wide receiver 1 in that offense?
See, that's so hard because they do different things, right? Brian Thomas Jr. is more of a deep guy. Travis Hunter can do a lot of contested catch underneath the stuff. So I honestly think they complement each other really, really well.
Yeah, but also like Travis Hunter, and I think a lot of this was to simplify, things for him because he was playing so much DB, but they played him pretty much exclusively at X receiver at Colorado, and that's what Brian Thomas Jr. does.
Yeah, I see Travis.
That'll be interesting, but I think, Hunter's more than good enough to move all over the formation, and size-wise, he fits more of like a Z slot anyway, but just making that note that in college he was almost completely an X receiver, and he torches press coverage. Like he would be a great X receiver. So anyway, all right. So Travis Hunter, we're still all in at the 102. I don't think anybody who listens to the show regularly is surprised to hear that. Omarion Hampton, we mentioned, we don't need to spend a ton of time here. It's just what a juicy landing spot.
I will say too,
John Harbaugh.
To that Omarion Hampton point, I've already seen people on Twitter and like dynasty groups going, well, it's honestly wheels down on Omarion Hampton because Najee Harris is there. Like, please do not overthink this. Like,
you saw people say that?
I saw it happen on more than one occasion. People saying that. Literally, don't. All I'm saying is don't overthink that. Najee Harris is not taking away from Omarion Hampton.
No. They just spent a first-round pick on the dude, and he's way more talented. So,
it was actually in the Nerds Facebook group they were talking about.
Okay. Let's not name names here. Omarion Hampton is a beast, and the Chargers. I mean, Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh. I don't know of another team in the NFL outside of maybe Pete Carroll with the Raiders that want to run the ball more than those guys do. So Jetty got a pretty juicy spot too. Like they want to pound the football, and they got a big 228-pound mammoth to pound the football with, who, by the way, can also catch passes in an offense that has a really good quarterback and should score a lot of points and have a lot of touchdown opportunities. So I love it for Amari Hampton. To me, he's my clear 103 right now coming out of this day one of the NFL draft. And so Genty, Hunter, Hampton is where I'm at for my top three. And number 4 gets interesting. So as we're reacting to this, I mean, the two guys that are probably the top candidates for most people to be the 104, assuming the ones that I just said go 1, 2, 3, who are you taking at 4? Probably the prime candidates would be Cam Ward, who goes 101 in a super flex league to the Titans, and then Tedero McMillan, who's the first wide receiver taken, goes to the Panthers. He's clearly the alpha there. I mean, those are two pretty great. I'm not going to say the Titans is a great landing spot, but it's a great draft capital, great opportunity, starting quarterback in Superflex. So you got the 101 at quarterback in a Superflex league, and then you've got a wide receiver that's 6'4", that's, pretty much universally loved, was considered a great wide receiver prospect. He goes top 8, which is fantastic draft capital, to a team that really has nobody else. Because at least on this podcast, we don't believe in Xavier Legette. So, which of those guys would you prefer, Rupert?
To me, McMillan's safer with a fantastic landing spot. Apparently, he's already been working out with Bryce Young, so they've already been building that connection. Again, clearly the number 1. He's going to be the red zone target. He's a great yak threat, so he can really win early, get yards after the catch. To me, he's just going to get funneled a ton of targets in that offense. So just thinking of it right now, like unless I'm like really quarterback needy, to me, I'm going to go to the safer pick with McMillan.
I would lean that way too. It's so weird to say in the top 4 picks in a super flex league, I'm not really looking at quarterback. But I'm with Rupert, right? Like if you're not super QB needy, like if you need a quarterback, by all means, take Cam Ward. He's still, a good prospect. We liked him. I'm a little worried that he has no one really there to outside of maybe Calvin Ridley, I guess, to pepper with targets.
There's still day 2 and day 3 to play out, right? And Luther Burden's still on the board. I saw a lot of mock drafts where the Titans go Cam Ward first round and then Luther Burden early second. So that could play out real life.
And I think it definitely plays off real
Burden
life.
Ridley would be nice.
More interesting to me for Cam Ward at 4. I think we can start having that conversation, but I wouldn't take him any higher than 4. I don't think. I think those top 3, like you said, are locked down. Ted McMillan is just going to get peppered with targets, though. Like the Panthers, and they rightfully so, knew that they couldn't go into the season with the bones of Adam Thielen as their wide receiver 1. So you had to address that position. Kudos to them for knowing that they couldn't walk in with Xavier Legette as the guy that they needed him to be. So, I love that landing spot because he's going to get so many targets, so many catches. Like he's going to be, almost a wide receiver 1, it feels like, just based on usage and targets alone. So for me, in that reason, that's why I'm taking him above Cam Ward.
Yeah, I think I would. This might feel like a cop out. To me, they're the same tier, and I would take whoever I needed more for my roster, honestly. But in a vacuum, I don't know. That's really tough for me. I feel like I lean Cam Ward in a super flex league, but I totally get what you guys are saying as well. And you're right. We need the Titans to add somebody for Cam Ward to throw the football to, and that's a factor as well. So maybe that happens tomorrow, and we'll be talking about that on our day 2 reaction show. All right, so there's 2 more guys that went in the first round we haven't talked about yet. Golden goes to the Packers. Jackson Dart goes to the Giants. I think there was a lot of people wondering, like, is Jackson Dart going to be a first-round quarterback? And think it's fair to say most people expected him to be the third quarterback at best taken. Shout out to our guy, John Fosbury, who's had Dart as his QB2 for months now, over Sanders. So, great call on that one. But Jackson Dart, QB2, first round. Does this make him a first round rookie pick? Jackson.
I'm still saying no to that. I understand he's a first round quarterback, and first round quarterbacks have value. But just based on who I think is going to go in the first round, and there's still some people that we haven't seen drafted that I would still feel comfortable, like Travion Henderson taking in the first round of a rookie draft. Like I don't know if I'm swinging on Jackson Dart. He still has some developmental curve, I think, in the NFL. He needs to learn how to read an NFL defense. He wasn't asked to do a whole lot at Ole Miss, and I think that's gonna play a whole lot bigger part than you think it will. He might not even. He's probably not even going to start this year, so you're holding him on your roster for a year. Like all those reasons. I mean, he's a second round guy for sure, but I'm not taking him in the first round of rookie drafts.
All right, so still taking the tight ends over him, right? Are we agreeing there?
Yeah.
Still taking Ibuka over him for sure.
Yep.
I mean, I for sure have no question in my mind on that. All right, let's say Burden goes second round. Are we still taking Burden ahead of Jackson Dart?
You know how much I love Burden, so I'm going to say yes to that.
Yeah, I would.
I feel like I'm still there. And then Henderson, same deal. So, I mean, that gets you down to what, 10 guys that I just named, including, obviously Genty, Hampton, Hunter, Ward, McMillan, we already talked about. So 11, Judkins. Let's say Judkins goes round 2. Are we taking Judkins ahead of Dart?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, that's close for me.
See, I would even, as much as I know we're going to get to this, as much as we didn't really like that Matthew Golden landing spot, I think I would still take Golden above him too.
See, I don't know, man. I mean, that's close because it's a quarterback in Superflex that got first round capital, and that team has a need. You don't spend a first round pick on a guy to not want to start him. He's got weapons there. There's rushing upside with Dart. Like, I don't know. For me, like, I like Golden. I like Judkins, but I might take the upside swing in the late first. That's close. Like, for me, Dart is a late first, early second type of guy at this point.
And I know this is a cop-out too, but, like, it also depends on team structure, right? Like, if you're picking in the back half of the first round, there's a chance you probably don't need a quarterback in a Superflex league. There's a chance that you have that position racked up already. So if you need a running back or a wide receiver, that's where I can see, yes, Judkins or Golden above somebody like Dart.
Yeah. I mean, it's close. For me, like, I like Dart more than I liked Bo Nix last year. I like Dart more than I liked Michael Penix last year. There's rushing upside there. There's youth. There's a big arm. Like, there's a lot going for him. Yes, there's going to be a developmental curve. Yes, I agree with what you said about Ole Miss not asking him to make reads as much. But, yeah, he's interesting to me. And I'm curious to see where he falls in rookie drafts. I feel like if he's one of those guys that you can get in the second round, like you could get Nix and Penix last year, I would consider that a value, and I'd be very interested at this point. So, and Daboll, I mean, for all we could say about, things have not looked pretty at times under Daboll with the Giants, I still think he's a good offensive mind. He's just been stuck with atrocious quarterback play. So, Daboll could definitely develop Dart there pretty well. So Matthew Golden, we don't love, I mean, we haven't explicitly said this. We said it in the Discord when we were reacting live to the draft. We don't love the Packers landing spot. Jordan Love is okay. I'm not overly in love with Love, right? And it's been hard to trust Packers wide receivers for a while. They've had a bunch of, like, super mid options that they've just rotated in and out. And they spent a first-round pick on Golden. I think he's better than the options that they have. So maybe he kind of solidifies himself and becomes the clear number one and is on the field all the time and becomes a favorite target. Like, that's in the realm of possibilities. But the lack of college production, I liked him but didn't love him as a in terms of a tape grade. And the situation, I'm very lukewarm at best on. So my view of him, like, I had him early second round in my rankings before this, and I think it's probably going to be similar, like late first, early second. My view hasn't changed a lot. I actually thought he was going to go higher than 23 based on all the hype. And, a lot of the mocks had him going to places like the Texans or, places that would have been more exciting than the Packers. So I don't know. What do you guys think? What are you doing with Golden? Where do you think when all shakes out and you get your volume 3 rookie rankings in for the volume 3 of the guide, where do you think you'll have Matthew Golden?
I'm pretty much in lockstep with you there, Cooper. Late first, early second. I can see him having like his weeks where he goes off, but to me, I feel like he's probably going to be a pretty inconsistent fantasy asset. To me, on tape, he just doesn't look like a number one, and I think that's kind of backed up by his production in college. He's more of a number two.
And he's going to be asked. He's going to be asked to be the number one in Green Bay. So
exactly,
yeah. I mean, even Seattle, like, that's a place where he could have gone. He was mocked a lot to Seattle. He could have gone there and been the number two.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't happen. So he's going to be asked to go in and be an alpha. I don't know if he's that guy. Yeah, I had him at 13 in my pre-draft ranks. And I said when we were on FFT a couple weeks ago, Heath asked us directly, like, hey, if he goes first round, are you going to bump him up or are you already accounting for that? And I said, I'm already accounting for that. I'm fully expecting him to be a first round pick. So if he bumps up at all, it'll just be because somebody else bumps down. Like, I've got three running backs in front of him in Henderson, Scadaboo, and Judkins that have not been picked yet. So depending on how far they fall, maybe those guys could fall below Golden, but it wouldn't be because of Golden rising. It would be because of those guys falling. And I don't even really expect that. Like, I think all three of those guys are going to go day 2. And as long as they go to decent spots, like, to me, I would rather have those guys than Golden from a talent perspective. So I think he'll stay in a very similar range for me.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you guys. Late first, early second. Like, he's not. This didn't cause him to drop for me, but it didn't cause him to raise for me either. Packers wide receivers over the years have just been so inconsistent. So yeah, nothing y'all haven't said. Just not in love with that landing spot at all.
Yeah, he would be a pick that, like, if I was on the clock and he was my highest ranked player available, like, I would pick him and feel a little gross about it. I'm not excited to take Matthew Golden.
I would try my best to trade down or something like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for the show. I think we've covered things pretty well. Day 1 reactions in the books. We're going to be back tomorrow night recording day 2 reactions at the end of day 2, and that'll be posted up Saturday morning. So you're going to get everything you need to know as soon as you need to know it. And even Saturday night at the end of day 3, we're going to get on and do an instant mock draft, a post NFL draft rookie mock that hopefully will help you guys as you're navigating your post NFL draft, real rookie drafts. So, and of course, check out the rookie guide. We've mentioned it a couple times on the show. If you're new, you haven't listened to the podcast before, it's 166 pages, 73 prospects, super in-depth. Like, it's digestible. It's a quick enough read for each prospect profile that you can digest the information. that's intentional, but it's also enough depth that it's not like just super surface level stuff that you could Google. Like we watched a lot of film and presented strengths, weaknesses, trait by trait breakdown, film grades, rankings, color coded by tier. And we're going to do a post draft update, adjusting our rankings based on draft capital and landing spots. So definitely get in CouchScouts.com. For as low as $5 a month, you can get in and buy one of our site packages, including the rookie guide. So appreciate you guys listening, and we'll see you tomorrow for day 2 NFL reactions. Have a good evening.